The Federal Aviation Administration's mission is to provide the safest, most efficient aerospace system in the world. The FAA's values statement begins with the words, "Safety is our passion." Thank you. Their stated goal is that all air and space travelers arrive safely at their destinations. The FAA seeks results that embody professionalism, transparency, and accountability. With a focus on integrity, honest, and ethics, the FAA focuses on people as their strength in today's world. The FAA strives to inspire vision, innovation, and creativity in providing solutions beyond today's boundaries. Our next presenter has 35 years of aviation experience, including over 17 years in the FAA and a total of over 25 years of government service. He has served in private industry in positions as Director of Maintenance, Chief Inspector, Commercial Helicopter Pilot, and Marketing Director for all of Latin and Central America. He holds FAA Commercial Helicopter and Private Airplane certificates, as well as airframe and power plant mechanic certificates. He has served as an aviation maintenance officer with the Army Reserves and the Army National Guard. He holds master's degrees in business administration, is the author of 3 books, and has been the recipient of many awards and recognitions, including the FAA's 2011 National Visionary Award, the 2005 Senior Executives Foreign Affairs Award, the 2003 National Barrier Breaker Award, and the Army's Bronze Star Medal. Please give a warm Air National Guard welcome to Mr. Melvin Cintron.
Good afternoon. Just to keep you awake a little bit, I think we're going to start out with a small video. Kind of gives you an idea about general aviation.
Hi, I'm John Allen, the Director of the Flight Standards Service, and I'm standing at the world's oldest continuously operated general aviation airport located in College Park, Maryland. This is where Wilbur Wright trained our nation's first military aviators. The Flight Standards Service, an arm of the Federal Aviation Administration's Aviation Safety Organization, sets standards for safety oversight across U.S. civil aviation. We issue policies, guidance, and regulations relating to aircraft operations, maintenance, and certification and training of airmen.
When Wilbur Wright was training the U.S. Army's first pilots, all aircraft were called flying machines. Today, aviation is divided into 2 main categories, military and civil. Civil aviation encompasses air carriers and general aviation. General aviation, or GA, has a rich history and is the foundation of our nation's aviation system.
And man, have we come a long way. The General Aviation and Commercial Division of Flight Standards Service, AFS 800, help manage the most complex and diverse general aviation system in the world. We provide the guidance, regulations, and policy recommendations that govern certification, inspection, surveillance of general aviation pilots, designated pilot examiners, pilot schools, and commercial operations. Additionally, we develop operational guidance for waivers of aviation events, such as air shows and air races. And lastly, we develop safety requirements for the operation of experimental aircraft.
There are hundreds of thousands of GA aircraft operating from our nation's 5,000-plus public use and commercial carrier airports. From ultralights to 747s, from 2-seat trainers to high-performance former military aircraft, GA is much more than a small single-engine airplane. General aviation can be recreational, fun, and exciting, and general aviation can support or be the cornerstone of a business, such as large privately operated aircraft used as business jets, agricultural operations like aerial applicators, balloons, banner towing, or a multitude of other business operations. General aviation encompasses a wide range of aircraft with a wide range of uses. And we're proud that through regulation, certification, and outreach, we're leading the way to promote safety.
A safe general aviation system is a healthy system, which will save lives and help our country grow. That is our goal.
The FAA inspector workforce consists of 3,000 plus inspectors and thousands of designees across the country and around the world. All are working on behalf of the FAA administrator, providing oversight of more than 600,000 active pilots, 207,000 general aviation aircraft, approximately 150,000 flight and ground school instructors, 6,000 operators, nearly 700 flight training schools and centers, as well as 5,000 repair stations and some 200 maintenance training schools.
Providing oversight for the operational portion of this diverse and complex general aviation system is our responsibility, but safety stewardship is a shared responsibility. Everyone in the aviation community needs to do their part. There are a number of ways Flight Standard Service promotes safety through training and educational outreach.
Go to the FAA website to find a host of safety resources on airplane flying, amateur-built aircraft glider flying, and publications, such as the Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge. Education and outreach is also the role of the FAA Safety Team, or FAST Team. Additionally, FAA Safety Briefing, a bi-monthly print and online publication, is available to all and designed to make the community aware of FAA resources. All of these efforts help general aviation participants understand safety and regulatory issues, while encouraging everyone's continued education and training.
General aviation is you, the pilot, the mechanic, the flight instructor, the balloonist, and general aviation is each of us, the professional men and women of general aviation and commercial division who work hard to assure safety.
Help us build on our foundation, a foundation that was started right here with the Wright brothers training our first airmen.
A foundation that is based on our passion for aviation and our commitment to sound safety practices.
On behalf of the more than 5,000 aviation professionals of the FAA Flight Standard Service, we thank you and invite you to help us continue to safely operate the most complex and diverse general aviation system in the world.
General aviation, the foundation of America's aviation system.
So, that's, in a nutshell, part of my world, the major part of my world. I don't feel as comfortable behind a podium, and I did check myself because one time I went to a job interview. I'll share this with you. I went to a job interview, and I knocked it out of the ballpark. I mean, and my friends were outside. I came out. They said, "Hey, Mel, how'd you do?" I said, "Oh, home run. I think I got it. I did great." They said, "Really, even with your zipper open?" So now I always check myself to make sure that that's not happening. But as I say, our mission is to assure safety while enabling the adventure and commerce of in the service of general aviation. We do this by setting the standards, the training, certification of airmen, aircraft. We certify them to a standard, and we make sure that those standards are continuously met. Okay, and through the surveillance that we have and the systems that we have in place, we think and we try to assure this. You know, I've read many books on leadership and things like this, and I say, well, should I have quotes and things like this regarding leadership? No. I think you all know that. If you haven't gotten it through some of the experiences that you have in the military and the training that you've received, you're going to get it if you're young enough still. So what I want to talk to you about is what challenge this means to us, what safety means to us, and what my experience has been in trying to meet that challenge. You know, we have maintainers, we have aviators, we have everyone. I think that regardless of the mode or specialty, as it says here, whether you're a maintainer, an engineer, an aviator, or others that fall under our leadership, to each of us, make no doubt, falls an accountability for safety, an obligation for leading, and a responsibility for making a positive impact. Now, I had, as John Allen said, the most complex and diverse general aviation system in the world. That comes with some challenges that you are also faced with and that you tend to meet every day as we try to meet them every day. But I am one of many within the agency that look to work together and find the synergies to make sure in these times of budget cuts and things that wherever there's duplication, we find the synergies to do what we need to do for the American public. I am a public servant. I am extremely proud of being a public servant. I came in the agency with a whole different mindset. When I was marketing director, I made very, very good salary. And it was an aviation company, and I thought, wow, if I make this much without any regulator training and without any FAA training or experience, how about if I go in the agency, become an inspector for 2 years, get the training, get the 1-year experience, come back out, how much more am I going to be worth then? But when I came in and I saw the impact that I can have on people's lives, there was no turning back for me. When I want to know what it means to me, and I tell my folks, and you that are involved in safety, here's how it works out for me. I don't know which father is kissing his daughter goodnight. I don't know which mother is taking her kid to a soccer game. I don't know which little girl is writing a thank you note to her grandparents. But I know that because of the work we do in safety, one of them's alive. Make no doubt. You can look back at what you do and the contribution that you make, and it is no less than that. Okay? So, accountability for safety. We have approximately 250 fatal general aviation accidents a year. We're pretty much flatlined. Yes, we continue to bring that line down a little bit, but not enough to where we can say victory, not enough to see the impact that we want to see. So when I first came into this agency, into the General Aviation Commercial Division, and I'll share this with you because it might help. If there's something that you find that helps, please take it. What I found was a culture that needed to be transformed, internally and externally. Okay? Internally, I assumed the responsibility for an organization that had been without continuity of leadership for no less than 6 years. Before I got there, there was an acting person for 11 months. Prior to that, there was another executive that was there for about 14 months. Prior to that, there was another person acting for about 6 months. Prior to that, another executive that was there for about 16 months. So when I came in, one of the things I noted was the impact of lack of continuity of leadership, where people now sat in the back cubicles, and everybody that came in there, myself included, and we try to institute a safety culture, an accountability culture. We try to do the right things for the American public to meet what they expect of us. What I noted is this attitude of, we can wait you out. You're just another one coming through. I had to convince my folks, and I spoke with the director. I said, listen, you've asked me to take on this task. What I'm going to ask you is not to entice me with any promotions, nothing. I'm here to make an impact. So don't entice me to try to get me into something else, because this organization deserves more. The American public deserves more. Okay? So that has worked. That was about coming on 3 years now. I can tell you that whole first year, I'm not going to say it was a lost year, but it was not a very productive year, because that culture existed of, we'll wait you out. It existed of, we're going to do the things that we continue to do. For example, if you called our office, people would go ahead and dictate policy from their cubicle without leadership seeing it, without leadership approving it, without legal. So we instituted some things. One, we needed standardization across the organization. And one thing we dictated is, if someone calls, be it one of our inspectors or be it the public, one, we're not going to say, hey, go to your local FISL, we're headquarters, we establish national policy. No, we are going to be responsive. That's part of our job. So, however, we're not going to respond to that one person. We're going to respond, and if the response requires clarification that cannot be answered straight out of our manuals, our inspector manuals, that's a policy interpretation. If there's a policy interpretation, it will be signed by me or my deputy, and it will be sent not to that individual, but to the heads of each region. so that they can distribute it to everybody, and everybody gets the same answer to this question. So those were some of the things that we had to do. And that, I am proud to say, of all the accomplishments that I've seen for myself, changing that culture has got to be one of the most gratifying things that I have had, because there's so few things that are as hard and take as long a time as changing a culture. We've met that. When I had the first meeting with the community, with industry, the folks that we regulate, it was a very angry meeting. People were saying, why are we here? What are you going to do? Over-regulate us some more? Do these kinds of things? And I told them, I said, no. I'm here because 250 fatal accidents a year is not acceptable to us, and I know it can't be acceptable to you as trainers and providers. So there's two options. I can sit in my office and dictate policies of how I think we're going to fix it. I can initiate regulations, or I can come to you because you live it, breathe it, do it, day in and day out. And I think the Admiral this morning talked about, or some of the folks talked about, who knows what's going on wrong. Those people do. So tell me what you see that needs to be fixed. Give me the input. What are the things we're doing wrong? What are the things we need to do right? That was kind of a shocker. But we listened to them. A year later, we came out with a revised flight instructor renewal course that represented 95% of the community's input. Okay? So I had to start getting community buy-in. When we started doing this, there were things that the community saw us as the regulator come in with a big hammer, and we can do that, and we have the big hammer, and we can use it. There's a time for that. However, I need them to be part of the solution, because the safety equation does not rest on you sitting there or me sitting in my office. It rests on everybody taking an active part and taking ownership of that. I needed the community to take ownership. So I had to bring them in. One of the things that we decided to do is say, look, we're not going to bring down the hammer. We're going to go ahead and institute remedial training. Remedial training by where if you make a mistake flying in our national airspace, if you make a mistake, I'm not interested in taking your license for 90 days. I'm not interested in taking one of your paychecks. The only change that affects is you personally for a small amount of time. But if I can sit down with you, or my inspectors can sit down and say, what led you to do this? Oh, I was trained that way. I went to this school. I was trained that way. I had a flight instructor that taught me this. My examiner, I just had an exam. I just had a check. Now I can go and touch the root cause. Now I can start affecting a bigger change, a better change. Those are the kinds of things that are happening. When we first, in that first meeting, that first public meeting that I held with the community, in public, you know what they said to me? General aviation has a credibility issue. In public forum. I took that as a very clear message of the change that needed to occur with our folks and the way that we are seen by the community. Talked about the Visionary Award. That was for a strategic plan that we developed. You know, I started out this, by the way, when I say I, and I reference I, the I is only in as far as if there is a failure. As a leader, the failure belongs to me. But the success cannot have an I. It has to be an us or we, the team. Okay? So I take ownership of the failure, but there's no way I can take ownership of the success. That's part of the folks that work for us, that work with us, in that team concept. Okay? So we developed a strategy to go ahead and find a way to transform general aviation safety. One of the things that we looked at, the different communities, for example, certified flight instructors. If I can go ahead and enhance that one community, I can bring that accident rate down tremendously. And you say, well, you know, I saw your challenge there with motor vehicles and bringing that rate down. a lot of this, I think, can be parallel. I looked at, there are folks out there that say, well, you know, maybe 250 accidents, it's what the system tolerates. Maybe that's what the system tolerates. I'm not going to say I take offense to that, but I'll say this. 250 to 300 accidents. I will grant, as ridiculous as this sounds, let's say we grant that we will accept 50 accidents for the things we can't fix. We can't fix stupid. We can't fix the non-compliant person. We can't, there's too many things we can't fix. So we're going to grant you, hey, we're going to accept 50 of those accidents. Let's accept another 50 accidents for the fact that general aviation flying is inherently more dangerous. And within general aviation, there's certain sectors that are more dangerous still. Okay? So now we've accepted another 50. That's 100. Now let's accept another 50 for that great pilot that goes out there, does that pre-flight, and totally expects to take off from point A and land in point B. And along the way, they encounter mechanical failures, they encounter human factor issues, they encounter weather, and they don't make it. They don't make it. Okay? So now I've given you 150 fatal accidents. Why in the world? How do we justify accepting that other 100? So I would say to you, as you look at your challenges with motor vehicle, with all these things, challenge. It's a challenge, but we cannot accept the status quo. You know, one of the things that was instrumental for us in changing the culture internally, and I apologize if I go back and forth, but one of the things that was meant is clarity, consistency, and commitment. We developed a 5-year strategic plan. I made sure that everybody in our organization knew that strategic plan. About 3 weeks ago, we hired about 8 new people. They came in, and a lot of them former military folks. They came in, and I went over the 5-year strategic plan. And I said, here's where you fit in. Here's your line of sight to this mission. And I got feedback on that a couple weeks ago because one of the folks came back. He says, you know, I went to Oklahoma City for the training, and it was incredible. We knew exactly what our mission was and where we fit in, and these other folks were kind of still waddling around. They knew they have a safety mission, but they didn't have that vision. They didn't have that clarity. And that leads to good commitment. So I would encourage you to make sure that your folks have that. Okay? Our people, you know, one of our core values in the FAA is people. So if you don't take time for them, and I tell my bosses this, if you have a problem with the amount of time I dedicate to people, remove this as one of our core values. But as long as it's there, I must live that core value. Okay? One of the things that helped transform the culture internally, from Wednesdays, from 8 to 12, nobody gets in my calendar but all the staff that I have. They can come in, tell me a clean joke, piss, bitch, moan, groan, whatever they want. Not a problem. They can come in. So, you know, it took a lot, but I think it was a good change. When I look at the community and the community's acceptance, and this applies, I think, to you folks also, I can't do what that 5-year strategic plan says we're going to do unless the community buys into. I don't have the resources. I don't have the budget. And it's getting cut more and more. Tomorrow, I leave today. Tomorrow, I go into our senior executive meeting so that we can strategize. But what I have found, and I'm very, very proud of the fact that the community has taken our 5-year strategic plan, they looked at it, and most of them have developed an equivalent plan to go along. For example, EAA, the Experimental Aircraft Association. What they did is they took that plan and said, okay, where do we fit in? How do we go ahead and do something similar? How do we innovate? How do we transform what we're doing? So those are some of the things that they did. Type clubs, for example, we say, well, the type club community has less fatal accidents than non-type club communities. So we want part of that. We want that. So we went out and we reached out to the type club community. We made it easy for them to gain access to our database so that when somebody comes in and does registers an aircraft, they can go in and see who registered what aircraft, and if it's in their area, they will reach out to them. You know, so there's so many things we do. You look at one of the other initiatives was as the FAA, and for you also, when you look at training, we say training is the most critical, the most important component of making sure that our future is done right, because we've trained correctly. We have the leaders that are going to come up, and they're going to come up with the right training and skills. When we looked at that, guess what we've never done as an agency? There's over 47 major universities in this country that have aviation programs. We've never brought that community together as a whole to talk about what are the best learning practices, best teaching techniques, what's working, what's not working. So last year, we did that. We did the first FAA Academia Symposium ever held. One of the challenges that I posed to them, and I pose it to you also. Before I do that, let me ask this. How many in here are aviators? Okay, quite a few. How many in here have flown or will fly some civilian aircraft? Okay, so I'm going to steal a statistic to bring reality home. If you don't think this is yours, this is part of you, Irvin Gleim, many of you have taken exams, FAA tests, and you've either used Gleims or you've used King or these folks that prepare these books. Irvin Gleim came to me, he says, Mel, your rate, what the agency's looking to do is, say, you want to bring the accident rate to 1 per 100,000 flight hours. He equated that taking 25 aviators, there's a lot more than 25 here, 25 aviators in their lifetime. When you look at the cumulative of their flight hours, you take 25 aviators in a room, and you look at the cumulative, one of them will be killed in a fatal accident in general aviation. Think about that. That is just not acceptable. So these are things that, you know, we need to be cognizant of, and you're part of this. You're part of this with us, and we want to be part of it with you. We're doing many things to help transition military personnel into the civilian sector, because we have a lot of them, and you all fly civilian-wise. So you need to be partners with us, and we need to be partners with you. Let's see, do we have the... I want to make sure I don't run out of time. We have an obligation to lead and a responsibility for making an impact. When you look at the budget cuts, personnel cuts, position elimination, transitioning equipment, one of the things that we found is, for example, we wrote an advisory circular on transitioning to unfamiliar aircraft. We did it initially for the amateur-built aircraft because so many people get killed in those first 5 and 10 hours. But when we started looking into this, you know, this applies to everybody. When you transition from one aircraft to another, that really does apply to everybody. There is an inherent risk there if you don't do the proper training and the proper preparation. As you look to get cuts in the equipment that you fly and the equipment that you maintain, what's that going to mean to you? How are you going to make sure that that person doesn't say, well, you know, if I can fly this, I can go into King Air with no problem? How do you make sure that that complacency isn't there? How do you make sure that that transition training is there to meet the challenges? How will FAA meet some of these issues that we have? And as far as the budget cuts, the personnel, the changes in workforce, We're going to be doing it through a better training. The skill sets that we look for the people we hire are a little bit different now. We rely heavily on SMS, the safety management system. Instead of us going out and being the quality control for the system, we want to make sure that there's a system in place that assures the end product is received, and that's what we're going to look at. We're going to look at going to designees, making sure that we have personnel that can do a lot of the things that we do. And again, we go back to the safety management system and we oversee them. Next gen, you know, the equipment that's coming on board, there's a lot of those benefits that we can take on. And we're leveraging the community. Like I said, I've been very fortunate in that kind of support. I'll go back to the academia. I say, okay, so you're training, and I might go over by a minute or two. I hope that's okay. But I said, are you introducing a tangent, inherent, but unintended consequence or risk? Because nobody goes and pays $150,000, $200,000 to get an academic license to graduate from Embry-Riddle or UND to go fly at 172 at your local airport. They do it because they want to wear those 3 stripes or 4 stripes with 300 people in the back, and that's what academia trains them for. That's what they train them for. But you're training them as professionals when they do that. However, when you take that jacket off in 3 stripes or 4 stripes and you put on a T-shirt and a pair of jeans, when you take that uniform off and you put on a pair of jeans and a T-shirt and you go up to fly to your local airport, do you feel any less responsible for making sure that the risk assessment and the safety quadrant within your brain is fully engaged for that? So these are things that we take into consideration. There's so much more. I wish I had more time. But so 3 things that I would say I would like you to take back. If it helps, great. If it doesn't, leadership and safety are 1 commitment, not 2. If you believe you can fully succeed in your leadership mission while completely failing your safety mission, you need a new belief system. Okay? Be a servant leader. Develop servant leaders. The challenge here is that when do we get to servant leadership? When do we get to care more about the mission that we want to do for others than for getting to that next step? Normally, people want to get the next rank, get the next promotion, get the next thing. And then when you're up there, when you reach some of those, is when you actually start looking and saying, wait a minute, it's got to be about more than checking the boxes. It's got to be about more than just making the next level. And you get into this servant leadership. I challenge you to go ahead and take those folks that fall under you and make them servant leaders at the earliest stage possible. Because that's what we need. We need people that are committed to serving that way. It'll provide clarity, purpose, commitment. It cannot be just talked, cannot be just walked. It must be exuded from the very worth of your character and integrity and at all times. Okay? Seek to have an impact, not just maintain or sustain. The current reality doesn't allow us the status quo. This future provides a minefield of opportunities and challenges. Okay? So, I hope that this has been worthwhile for you. I apologize for any extra time I've taken. It has been humbling. General Wyatt, thank you, sir, for allowing me this humbling opportunity, and hopefully we can help you out any way we can. We have a lot of programs for the folks that are going to be disadvantaged and other things like this, and my office is open to all of you. Thank you.
Mr. Cintron, thank you for spending time with us today, and I appreciate your presentation. Thank you, thanks for your service, first as a former Army soldier, and your continuing service as a public servant with the FAA. We look forward to working with you in the future, you know, with remotely piloted aircraft, access to to national airspace. I think we all have some challenges that we need to work together with. And, do me a favor and talk to your medical folks and let them know there's an old guy coming their direction one of these days. Need a little help with my medical. Okay?
We'll do that,
Thank you, sir.
We'll do that.
This is for you.
Thank you, sir.
Token of my
Thank you.
appreciation.
Thank you.
And a pin set from us, okay?
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you,
It was
sir.
a pleasure.
All right.